What is up, Cabbage Crew? It's Matt and John here recording episode 6 of Avatar the Netflix series. I'm going to call it that from now on. It's not even Avatar the Last Airbender at this point. It's just Avatar the Netflix series. So episode 6, Masks. Like we've been doing before, is just jump in, kind of scene to scene, give our thoughts of that specific scene, which may kind of go all over the place at certain times, but it is what it is. So let's talk about that opening scene with Iroh, Zuko, Zhao, Lee. What are your thoughts about that whole situation?
I liked Lee the most, and that shouldn't be the case. Like, it just shouldn't be the case. Like, not only was he doing a good job, in my view, but also Iroh and Zuko were not playing their part. Like, it was not. I didn't get any sense of, like, Zuko had a little bit of raw emotion, a little bit, but not to the extent of what we're used to. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Okay. Yeah, I think Lee's one of the maybe the only thing in this show. Maybe there's another one I cannot think of right now. But the only thing that I'm not talking changing plot and combining plots. I'm thinking a new thing that we actually got in this show that we did not have in the original show. That's actually somewhat working. And it worked a lot in this episode. I mean, he was kind of not really in it too much before this episode, but he really worked in this episode. And the story that they semi-changed, and we'll talk about that one later because it's kind of more at the end. But Lee has worked for me. And it's helped humanize Zuko a little bit more. And it showed that because by the end of this, when you know what happens, it helps humanize that character a little bit more, a little bit faster, which I think we need in an 8 episode. Like it makes you like Zuko. If you've never seen this show before, by the end of this episode, you're like, okay, I kind of am starting to like the Zuko guy a little bit more. What are you thinking about?
No, I mean, it's just kind of hard imagining if we're watching this for the first time, like, as in like Avatar in general. Like if this was the first, like if we didn't watch the cartoon first, it's just kind of hard to imagine. But I'm trying to, and I would say I would agree with you that like Zuko at this point would be more of a like a character that you can relate to in a way, and maybe he's not as bad as he seems based on how he is acting
at this point. Yeah, it is tough because it makes you think of, not to go off too much of the review, but it makes you do have that like that thought in your mind of like, is this show made for Avatar the Last Airbender fans, or is it like, I don't think One Piece was necessarily another Netflix original, I guess you could say. I don't think One Piece was necessarily made for the fans. It was to bring in new fans. And now you have new people, people that never heard of the anime One Piece, myself included. Like, I never even heard of that anime. I'm not a huge anime guy, right?
Man.
And you know, and I not that I read the anime now, but I now know it's become more of a pop culture thing where, you know, I see it now in stores, I see it now in the mall. You know, it became more of a pop culture franchise, and I think it brought in a lot of fans. I don't think this show is necessarily made to bring in a lot of new fans.
That's what they were trying to do.
Right. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but I almost feel like everything they're doing, part of me is like, I don't think this show, I think if they're trying to bring in new fans, just the anime is what can bring in new fans, because it's not like One Piece has 1,000 episodes.
Well, here's the thing. That's what it did during COVID. It was the top show on Netflix, so they didn't really need to make the show.
It just makes you think, are they making this show? And I'm not going to like bash a studio for making a show to try to make money, but it's like, are they trying to make, did they make this show because they were like, well, there's a lot of Avatar fans, and now we're going to remake it in a live action the way they want to see it? not necessarily. Like, for instance, I think Harry Potter. They're not making a new Harry Potter show.
Yeah, they
because
are.
No. Because they think they're going to bring in new fans. They're doing it because they think they're going to get profit off the fact that there's already a bunch of. They're not going to gain any more fans from Harry Potter, in my opinion. Like, this HBO show is not going to do anything about gaining more fans because you have the original shows, movies that still hold up. And and anything, this show, the HBO show is going to be longer. So I just think going into Avatar, and I'm just bringing that back to Zuko and this whole kind of plot is like it's so hard to do something like Zuko's story arc unless it has time. So by giving him something like the Lee story that we see throughout kind of this thread, it makes him a little bit more. It makes him likable faster. The conversations that him and Aang have later on makes us think about, is there going to be a redemption arc for Zuko faster if you've never seen this show before?
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was getting to, where it's like, I think in the original show, you always looked at him as an anti-hero. I've said this before. Season 1, you looked at him as the better of the two bads, and then better of the two evils, everyone look at it. And then season 2, you start feeling sorry for him, and you think he could be redeemable, and then he kind of betrays that thought. You feel betrayed, and then by season 3, he redeems himself fully. I just think they're just speeding up that process in this episode with Lee and his story. So that's how I kind of feel about that. I kind of went off on my dog wanted to talk to me, I guess, but kind of went off there. But
I think Kylo agrees.
Yeah, Kylo agrees. What's up, Kylo? So let's just start here. I mean, the episode starts with Aang going to the temple, and in my opinion, all done pretty fast. You're the Roku guy, so walk us through it, baby.
It was so bad. Look, and I'll keep giving credit where credit's due. I think the CGI of each location is pretty spot on with what the show is, or what the show displayed. But again, though, it's about the way it's done and how it's carried out, and it just wasn't good. It was so bad. It did a disservice to Roku. I thought the fire sages looked good. I thought they acted okay.
Do you think that was done quick, or do you think? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, where like Shayu just shows up randomly and says, "I can save you. Let's go through this door real quick," and it felt too rushed. And they get to Roku's shrine just through a back door. They don't use firebending to open a gate. They totally skip that part.
I mean, I can see why, because they don't have Sokka there, and so like maybe they just wanted to, and they wanted to be. There's a lot going into this one episode, so they felt like the let's just get them talking to Roku fast. My thing is, like, they went through a trap door through a hallway. There could have been a conversation. Like it could have been a nice 30-second conversation of even going back to the whole, like, my dog is freaking out. Even going back to the whole idea of, like, once the fire sages were loyal to Roku, they were loyal to the Avatar. But we all thought that the Avatar abandoned us. We all thought the Avatar never reincarnated, whatever he wanted to say. And so our loyalty went to the Fire Lord, but mine is not. And that's kind of paraphrasing there, but that's kind of what he said before. Instead of this like weird dialogue between them right before they fought, it was just out of place.
Yeah.
I feel like that's, again, a theme of this show for us. It's been a theme of there's a lot of dialogue out of place. This should probably be said here. This is probably handheld a little bit, holding our hands a little bit through certain aspects, or just the way they say it is just not how, like, one would do it. Like, that whole scene to me was fast and messy.
Yeah, like, I know, like Roku's character. I could be wrong, and I'd like to know who it is, but is that also Iroh's character? Is that also Roku?
Roku and who's?
Iroh. Were they the same actor?
I don't think so. Jesus
they
Christ.
They look similar.
It looks No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, at first I was because I even wrote it down. I was like, oh, is Roku gonna be evil or what's going on with Roku?
Yeah.
And then the joke. I don't even remember what it was. Something
I
along
don't
the
know.
lines of
That's
bounce on
not,
one leg. I was like, what is this? Like this is a parody of Avatar the Last Airbender. Like it might be spoofed. Like Ashton is Ashton Kutcher in the like I literally I said that I turned paused it to breathe, to be like, okay, just accept this. So I'm not I'm finding myself pausing myself at times. I've never done this, but pausing moments that are like horrible to like breathe and be like, don't hate the rest of this episode or scene due to this one moment. I did it in the Kyoshi Island episode where it was like, oh, they did the whatever me you laugh at all the time now, but that I did it multiple times in episode 4 with Boomy, and you know I did it there too. I was like, the writers suck. I'm not going to kill the scene for the entire episode for it. I'm not going to kill even the entire sequence of him getting what he needed to get and then leaving Roku. Like I'm not going to kill them for the entire sequence. The writers just suck. And it is what it is, and then you gotta move on from it. And that's
well, here's the thing: can you move on from it? Because dialogue is super important in a show. Like, so can you move on? I argue no, because that's why I think part of the reason why my ratings for each episode is super low, because there's no, for lack of a better phrase, there's no fire, there's no like real emotion that I'm getting. And it's partly the actor's fault too, I'm sure. But it's also dialogue. I think dialogue plays a big part in that. And I might be jumping too far ahead, but like Zhao's military speech to his people, that wasn't a military speech.
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, I felt the same way. I would say this. I guess I should rephrase how I said it. I will obviously dock points and say something's bad if it's written bad. What I'm saying is, if I feel like there's a really bad written scene, I'm not going to kill the episode for it. Or if I feel like there's a really bad written dialogue, for instance, Gran, let's go back to that. That speech of the opening thing was horrible, but maybe the rest of that scene was good. It was just because I'm just going to be straight. I don't think any of the acting in this show has been good. There's some on par stuff, but there hasn't been any great acting where I'm like, wow, like this. Going back to One Piece, Nami, that actress did a fantastic job in multiple occasions where you're like, I feel it, man. And there has not been, I have not felt, I love this show. I have not gotten the chill, I haven't gotten goosebumps. I haven't felt anything from any of the acting, from any of the writing. So, like, for me, it's like, I can't kill each scene because it's poorly written, because across the board, it's been like that. So if there's a good episode and there's 4 or 5 spots where it's poorly written, I'm not going to kill the whole episode for it. That's what I was kind of trying to say. This is an example of that. I think that was that one leg thing, that whole Roku sequence was horrible. I do think this was a good episode, but that was God, like that was like one of the worst things I've ever seen. Like it was literally a spoof. Like if they just put that one scene online, I would have thought it was a spoof. I would have been like, if that was one of their like we're gonna promote the show and they put that on, I would have been like, is this a Saturday Night Live skit or something? Like knowing that's the actor of Aang, but not knowing that's the actor of Roku. I would have been like, is this Saturday Night Live or is this a comedy sketch to promote the show? What's going on here? No, that's an actual clip. It's like, clip of what? The show. What? It's like, let's just move on from that, because it was so bad. Like I said, I've rarely done. I paused it. I had to sit there for a second.
I paused it too.
All right, let's move on from that.
Yeah, they just did Roku bad, and I like Roku's not this like he never showed off humor. Like what says that he has humor?
He reminds me of Gandalf a little bit. Like I don't know if they try, or not Gandalf. I'm sorry. Sorry, wrong franchise. Don't kill me here. Dumbledore. It reminds me of Dumbledore in a way. It's like here's this older, wise, bearded man that gives me a lot of wisdom. Who's a badass, but he never really gets to use it because of a specific reason. Right. And it's like, and he gives the main hero speeches and information in a great way for the audience to learn, as well as the hero learning.
Right.
And are there times where you're like, why didn't he tell him that earlier? Sure, fine. Like, why didn't Roku tell him the first time they met why Susan started the war, or about the Avatar state? Who knows? But maybe because there wasn't a lot of time.
Exactly. And he's telling a story. Like, that's the whole point. Is I think part of the reason why this show is just not resonating with me is because I don't see a story. Where in the cartoon you get the story initially with Katara being emotional with her whole monologue where like 100 years have passed and the Fire Nation is nearing victory in the war. Like, she's giving you a timeline and a story for like a minute. Mm-hmm. And then like you get the scene of like her Sokka or the picture of Sokka and her like being sad and melancholy because they're in this 100-year war, and then with Roku, he's also telling stories like 100 years ago, the Fire Nation launched an incredible first strike against the other nation. Like, it's a story. It is 30 seconds to talk.
Told a quick story. Yeah.
And so I get nothing. Yeah, I'm not connected. I'm just not connected.
I mean, it's like it's not stories. It's explaining. And while they're doing it, it's bad dialogue, and then they're trying to throw cheesy jokes in there. I mean, again, when he said that, bouncing around on one leg, I was about to end this podcast. I was like, oh my god! I mean,
do we skip episode 6?
Like, what do I do? So real quickly, kind of the whole, I guess the reason of him going there is to find out how to defeat the face dealer, Ko. And he finds out that, he was able to he took something from him, and now I guess they give him back, which is just a statue of the Mother of All Faces. I mean, I didn't hate that. It was a little too quick, a little too easy, but this episode was not revolved around. We all thought this was going to be like a part 2 of like what we saw last episode. It really wasn't. Right. It was just a way for Aang to be alone so he could do this mission so he can get captured, and then Aang, like this was very much a Blue Spirit episode.
Right. There's a point in time in I think, and I might be jumping ahead, where like Blue Spirit when the Blue Spirit or Zuko comes in and saves, and there was a point where I literally paused. I paused it. Mm-hmm. And I wrote down, I was like, are Katara and Sokka still in the spirit world?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really give a time frame. I mean, I don't know if that was just one day. I don't know if that was a week.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I don't know. I mean, it didn't really. It's weird he didn't take Appa. He's like, oh, you glided there? Like, I mean, you glided what, like 70 miles?
More than 70 miles.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I don't know what village they were in, because they were in a village that was taken over by the Fire Nation or close to it.
So it's Earth Kingdom. It was the village with Habai.
They were right on the edge.
So remember, it was like a day's journey.
In Avatar, yeah, in the show.
Yeah.
So it's just weird that they chose to be, again, it's like one of these things where it's like, let's change something about it. And it's like, well, changing it doesn't make sense, because this island is at the worst 70 miles. Like let's say 40 miles.
Right.
My boy ain't gliding 40 miles.
No.
So it's like, why didn't he just it could have been just another moment. He could have been flying with Appa, and it just would, and even if it was like, just us again right now, huh, bud? Or something, just to have a connection with Appa, because Appa's storyline is going to be so big later. Right now, I feel like after 6 episodes, I'm like, barely even seen Appa.
First of all, who says that Appa's going to have a bigger story later? Because this show has been going everywhere.
That's true. But it's just kind of crazy that he kept them behind. I mean, I guess the reason they did that is because he would have to get captured. and where would Appa be? So I guess it's just.
I just wish they I just wish they.
What happens when you combine things? When you start combining things, and you have to start making things make sense in different ways, and then it doesn't make sense. So
right.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, it's just I would have preferred. Again, I hate comparing. Well, I mean, I guess the point is to compare, but I preferred the original where Katara and Sokka go with Aang to the Fire Temple. Even though Aang says no at first because he doesn't want to put them in danger, but then it's like, we're still your family. We got your back. You're not going to the Fire Nation alone without unless it's with us because we got your back. Like, it's just another moment of camaraderie, family. That's what Avatar. One of the many reasons of why it's just a full circle of
why we love Avatar episode.
That's why we love Avatar. Yeah. I just don't get a familial aspect here. I get nothing. I get nothing.
Yeah, it is. It is one of it's one of those things now where it's like you said before about Appa. It's like the story is so different that it's hard to even. I mean, I made a joke saying, what did I say? Avatar, Netflix series, or I don't even remember what I said, but basically, it's like this isn't really the same show. That's why I keep trying to take ideas. I keep trying to tell myself, like, stop comparing. I know as we were comparing this entire episode so far, but like, just take it for what it is. But again, even it would be one thing if everything happened, because going to Roku, they changed that story of why. Before it was to find out about the comet. He had a vision and it was about the comet. All right, cool. Let's find out more about this comet. Now it's to get something to take down Ko. But you can still do it well, right? And that's why I gave kudos to it last episode, because I felt like even when they went away, they still did it well. Like that whole Roku scene wasn't done well. Getting the statue, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but that was actually true. The mother faces is Ko's mother from the comics.
I've heard of that,
yeah. So like that, and that's cool. That's a cool little touch where it's like, okay, you're gonna take something from the comics, and okay, I'm cool with that. Even when they went, when they said that some of the lines of like they went into this, when they went to the spirit world, they went into the mist of lost. I forgot what it's called. The mist
Lost
of
Souls.
Lost Souls. That's in Korra, right?
Yes, I was like, that sounds like Korra. Yeah,
that's where Zhao ends up going.
Yes.
So again, that's a nice, because that is world building. That is something where it's like, oh, cool. This is something that actually existed before Korra. These are things and characters that we can now put together. But again, that we've been talking about it for 20 minutes now. But that Roku scene was so bad.
Yeah.
But it just really killed it. So and the Mother Faces stuff, all of it was done really fast. Anything that wasn't bad, that was done kind of okay, was just done fast. Like even the relic sitting there, it's like, oh, he just turned around, grabbed the relic, and went. I thought it was gonna be like this new adventure to go get the relic, just like he had to go get the frogs. Like, okay, he has to, instead of getting frozen frogs to give to his friends, he has to go find this relic, and on the way there, he gets captured. Right. That's kind of what I was thinking, and then he like turned around, grabbed it, and I was like, oh, it was that easy. like, thank God Zuko captured you, or this would be like nothing. So yeah, let's talk about Zuko capturing him. June. He walks out, and you think that these fire stages had this fight, and instead it was interrupted by NATLA, Shershu, and Aang now gets captured by Zuko, which then reveals that Zhao has been kind of betrayed him, or kind of turned on him and took him for himself. So, how are you thinking about that whole sequence?
I'll be honest, I didn't like Nyla paralyzing Aang. I thought Aang was too good to get paralyzed by a pet. That was just like my whole thing with that. Like, it made sense with the story, with what they're doing, but I just didn't. Again, it's like going back to like, this is not something that I don't think would have happened. But I thought that whole sequence humanized Zuko. I mean, that was the whole point. Like, Zuko wasn't getting annoyed at Aang asking too many questions. He was like, he kind of like he wasn't saying it, but like his silence was like I should answer him, but I'm not going to. And like it gave him the sense of like Zuko isn't always this angry person.
Mm-hmm.
There's something whether it be good or like an ulterior motive, something's inside him. And I thought for what it was fine. There was nothing spectacular about it.
It ended really bad. Again, dialogue, acting, he's like feeding the audience with just like, I'm going to hold your hand and say exactly what these characters are thinking and exactly what he says, something along the lines of like, what happened to you? Like when Aang said that, and you know what I'm saying? Like it ended, the scene ended, and Aang, right before it ended, Aang goes, like, says to himself, like, I know you were, I feel like you were a good person. What happened to you? And it's like flashback. It's like, do we need him to say that? Like again, just some of this writing is like, this is, if I believe this show was made for teens, 20s, 30s, people that grew up on the show, right? And like you said, maybe bringing in some new people. Cool. The animated show that was made for 12-year-olds had way more writing. They respected and understood their audience was smart enough to answer things. They didn't do certain things. Even the fight sequence, which we'll jump to right now, I guess, between and the whole thing of him getting banished. It was just played out. In the original, not trying to compare, but I'm comparing the reason of good versus bad. Mm-hmm. What works and what doesn't. In the original, it's fast, it's crisp, it's like, and I looked away and you just hear Zuko yelling with the fire. Yeah. And it's like, and there's something to it, like you still can't see the Fire Lord's face. There's still this, like, it was just done so well, so memorable, one of the most memorable scenes in the entire show. Mm-hmm. And this was just done, like, poorly. I don't know what to say, but it was just done poorly. Like,
it was bad.
It was bad. And again, they didn't have to go away. All they needed to do was, when he had the flashback thinking about it, was saying what Ira said. I was ready to go there and take down my this war leader, whatever. I turned. It was my father I had a fight. And then all of a sudden, that's when he says the line. And then you didn't have to do anything else besides that. And
knowing who Ozai is
frustrating.
He would have never given Zuko the time to talk back to the colonel or the general. He would have never given the time of day of like, Zuko, what's your opinion?
That would have never happened. And again, they're obviously doing something different. Like, it's like the fire. I almost give the sense that the Fire Lord knows that Fire Lord doesn't respect either of his kids, and he's trying to find out which one's weak.
Mm-hmm.
And the son is trying to be more like himself. The daughter is trying to be a perfectionist, and he still looks at both of them as weak. That's kind of where I see the two, which is fine. Mm-hmm. Again, that change is not the end of the world. It's still kind of it might work. So I was okay with him asking, but no, I'm sorry, I was not okay at asking. But how it ended up working out for Zuko, when Zuko didn't know what to say, and he kind of looked at him as like, you're a waste. And then when the war meeting was over, and he stood up and was like, "That's a bad plan." Like, I thought that was done as good as it possibly could have been.
Sure.
Without them doing the war meeting stuff was fine. I have more of a beef with the actual acting guy.
I agree. No, I agree. Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with that. The archers, I cannot think of their names.
Yu
Yan's archers.
Even though they pronounced them Yu Yan, and I was so pissed.
They were underwhelming.
Very underwhelming.
It's tough because there's only one way to capture Aang. They chose June.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you gonna do with the archers now?
Right.
I predicted, I think either last episode or when me and you got off and we're just talking for a minute, I predicted that June was going to attempt to capture Aang. Aang would get away, but then get captured by an archer. Almost like they're racing. They have their third parties of how they're going to catch Aang. Him using the archers, Zhao using the archers, and Zuko using June, and
Right.
and Zhao was going to essentially win using his third party. Didn't happen, but that's okay. They were very wasteful. But I mean, that's how in the show, Zhao, they're wasting their time sitting here. Why are they even here? Zhao said that. So let's talk about the Blue Spirit. Think, God, it wasn't Azula.
Yeah, Matt and I were talking off camera, and I was saying, dude, the way that this show's going, I would not be surprised if Azula is the Blue Spirit, because she wants to please her father, so she'll be the Blue Spirit and bring Aang back, all this stuff, and not to mention Blue Fire. So it kind of like made sense, but it wasn't that. So we can actually breathe a sigh of relief here.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was done well. For like, again, even though it lacks. Aang brings the scene down, and I think the way that it was designed, good, because it was like pretty on par to what it was supposed to be, or what the original was. It's Zhao brings the scene down. It brings it all down. It's Zhao and Aang that just don't.
Zhao's speech was bad,
and I'm not with it. But I liked what they were trying to do. It wasn't put out properly.
Yeah, no, Zhao's speech was, again, why go away? Zhao had an awesome speech, yelling to what looked like about 100 soldiers. Here, it was like he stood on a bucket. And was talking to like a dozen guys,
Right.
And the anime, it looked like he was on top of the tower screaming to him, and there was maybe 100 guys. It looked like
it was more than 100 guys. It was like a whole
army. Yeah, I mean, it looked like a Lord of the Rings scene from the anime. I mean, it just it was an odd choice to kind of do what they did, because then you look around, you're like, well, this place is huge, and there are a bunch of guys here. So why was he only talking to like maybe 15 of them? Like, there looks like there are about maybe 100 people here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, the escape, set aside the speech, the escape itself, I will say, is 100% the best thing we've seen so far in this show.
It's up there. No, that's what I was trying to say. Like,
everything
played out was the way it went down.
Yeah, from as soon as he basically cuts Aang loose, all the way till he gets hit and Aang sees it's him. Fight choreography, I cannot say that word right now. Choreography. It was really good. The CGI was good, maybe because it was dark, but the CGI was good.
I agree.
Everything. From even the ladders, they use the ladders as like, they use them to use them as like
a pogo stick.
I'm trying to think of what it's like. The long legs,
the long ladder.
Yeah, that was all done really well, and I think that is, again, it's like
stilts.
Right? Yeah, they use them as like stilts. That's another thing that, like, they pulled that right out of the anime. All of it,
and that was good.
The entire sequence was done. Yep. Even him, like, talking to how he was talking to Aang, and was like, he didn't say anything like, "Do you miss your people?" But like him talking to Aang and walking away, and Aang blowing and hitting him, and he goes against the wall. I mean, that was all pretty good. And
I disagree with that, but
you like that part?
There's no acting. There was nothing.
Oh yeah, the acting was bad. I'm sorry. I'm saying like you said, how the scene played out, the things that happened in the scene, and then the breakout, like, all of that was taken right from the anime, and it was the best part of the show. But yeah, I mean, we keep going back to this, but gosh, it's a theme. Acting, I have now come to the conclusion after 6 episodes, because I kept giving the benefit of the doubt to the actors and being like, the writing's horrible, the acting's horrible too. It just is. Like there hasn't been once. Even Iroh hasn't been great. Zuko, like I said, Zuko's been okay, but that's because I think Zuko just as a character has a lot to do, and it's probably easy to show anger and to show like season 1 Zuko, and that's probably an easy thing to do. Aang's acting's bad.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I'm like starting to get annoyed at the kid. Like just the way he like says things and just does things. I'm just like, nothing against the kid, but I guess but something against the kid. But just like
there's a dialogue that he said, I don't remember what it was in this episode, but it made me like think that like, am I watching a 6-year-old or a 12-year-old? Like there was like I forget the dialogue. I think it was when Zuko captured him. There was something that he said, and I was like, it made me cringe because it was like a younger, even though like a younger person would be saying something like this, not a 12-year-old.
I can't remember what that is. Well, I mean, him and Aang had a moment that we don't get to see in the show, in the anime, where they're sitting in some type of barn or something, and they're having a discussion. Didn't hate it, but didn't love it. I think it's again, but I remember watching the live action movie, and one of the scenes you never saw it, correct?
Nope.
There was right at the end. It was right during the North Pole. And they're like about to fight, and maybe they already did. And Aang's about to walk away, and he's like injured on the ground. Same situation. And he looks at him and says something along the lines of, he looks at him and says, "Man, like, I know there's good in you," and then keeps walking. And it's like the audience is not necessarily supposed to know Zuko's going to be a good guy. You know, we all kind of know deep down. We all kind of like figure, like, hey, he most likely is going to be. This is most. But, like, it's not supposed to be, like, hand-fed to you. It's like this was them sitting in the barn was essentially like, if I've never seen this before, I'm like, oh, Zuko's going to be a good guy eventually. By watching that one scene. And maybe just because I was young when I originally watched the first Avatar the Last Airbender, but, like, season 1, I never looked at Zuko as like, oh, yeah, maybe he'll redeem himself. I just looked at himself as a cool anti-hero.
Correct.
And then, and then by season 2, I was like, maybe he will. And then that's when he rips your heart out at the end of season 2. And then season 3 he eventually does. So it's like, all that dialogue I didn't like. And then it goes back. He has a flashback where he's injured in bed. And Iroh's talking to him, and the Fire Lord comes up and talks to him, and has that dialogue with him. And again, it's all added content that's not needed for me, and all it's gonna do is piss people off more.
It's nothing Ozai would have ever done. And like, and you can say, oh, but you would never know that. But yeah, I think we can infer based off of like how he treats his kids in the first in the anime.
Well, and the argument I guess would be, well, this isn't the same Ozai, right? Like this is a different story.
Then tell us that. Give us like a pre thing of like this is not supposed to be the original, and like have it.
But then I would say I don't think this Ozai would banish him then. Like seriously, I'm watching this and I'm like, this Ozai does not seem like the type of dude that would banish my son. It seems like he cares about his kids.
Right.
Like the other Ozai didn't care about Zuko. He didn't even want Zuko. He looked at Zuko as a almost a like
bad egg.
Bad egg. Yeah. And it was like Zuko's reputation to him is hurting me. Let me get him out of here. And like I didn't feel that with that scene, with him getting burnt, him coming up to him and talking to him. I feel like the Ozai they're representing is a little bit lighter. He's almost like he's a bad father, but he ain't a horrible father.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, and like
remember what Zuko says. He's the worst father in the history of fathers.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
that's what.
I mean, the way I look at it is like you disrespected your uncle because he had a plan that I told him to do. You disrespected him. You know what, kid? You're 19. You gotta move out. Like that's. You know what I mean? Like that's. It's almost the same thing. All right, so let's wrap this up with probably the best part of this episode, which is the story of Lee. That whole thing worked. I said that there was something that they added with Lee, and it makes sense. It not only does it make sense, it adds more context. It actually makes Zuko more likable when you're supposed to actually like him. The moment you're supposed to be like, Zuko is not bad.
Right.
Is that the 41st Division?
Yeah.
That they ended up becoming his crew.
Yes.
And they didn't know it. So they had no idea why they're this mission with Zuko. And they find out right then that, oh wow, we were supposed to be sacrificed, and Zuko actually. I like that addition. That was good. I will give props to the show for doing that because it doesn't mess up anything. It doesn't mess. I mean, you can maybe make an argument. Oh, well, why did they betray him later in the season with Zhao? It's like, well, no, they just had a general tell him that you have to go on a mission, and they left, and they kind of left Zuko at the end of the season in the anime. But that's something where, like, if that was in the anime, that would make sense to how the anime plays out.
I agree.
And that was a great addition.
We don't know why he has a crew to begin with. Like, I think my inference was like, oh, General Iroh, like, we respect you, so we're gonna go on this mission with you. Like, but that was like the only real inference that.
For all we know, this is real information that we don't know about because like we didn't read like a book or a comic or something. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't read all the comics, so like you never know. Maybe this is something that we just don't know about yet, but it was a really nice addition. I even wrote down, I was like 41st crew. I really like the bowing part was a bit too much. When he like walks, they're all bowing and stuff. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that's a little too much, but whatever. And then another thing is Aang finally goes back, has the face stealer, which all seemed to rush, like him just throwing the thing, the keep wanting to say painted lady. He throws the mother of faces statue thing on the ground, and then just everyone's free. There was no like conversation between them two.
It's bad. It's just bad.
Yeah, it was not a quick conversation between them two. Monkey Gyatso, I don't understand. Why did Monkey Gyatso leave? Why was he gone?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Like, I think your guess. They never explained it. Like the one thing they could explain and feed me, like hold my hand on this part. Like I wish he left because of this, and I'm like, oh okay, I got it. Like the one thing I don't understand. I couldn't. I don't even know what to say to that because I genuinely don't know why he left. Like I don't know where did he go. Was that just in his head? Like, I'm serious. Like just like how Katara and Sokka saw things and they saw visions. Did Aang just envision him? And then maybe that's
probably
why. Yeah, that's why I didn't know. Like I'm like, was that maybe in his head? He thought it was a spirit world, but it was in his head because of the. And then once everyone was rescued, that's when the mist goes away and stuff. And now they don't see anything. They don't.
Right.
You know. So that's the only thing I can think of. Of course, if it was in his head, then it would have been Ko, and Ko would have just killed him. So I don't know. I couldn't tell you. And when he got back, like all the stuff was still there. Like the hut was still there. So I couldn't tell you.
And this is why this episode gets a 1.5 out of 5.
You gave it a 1.5?
I give it 1.5. Like I want to give this show more. I can't. I really can't.
You know, I'll say this. The beginning of it and the end of it were both rushed because of the Ko stuff. It's like, go to Avatar real quick. It's rushed. Get this little thing that we can give Ko later. And then at the end, give it to Ko. Like, those two things were rushed. Like the June stuff for the most part. The backstory stuff was hit or miss. It was only hit because of what eventually happens with Lee. So I'm okay with certain things.
Sure.
I liked the addition of Lee's story. And I really like the Blue Spirit stuff. So, like, I'm not saying it's good because good would be a 4. I'm going to give it a 3.75, the best rating so far in this episode.
I'm really confused on the rating if you think the dialogue is bad and the characters are bad or the acting.
Because that's across the board, man. Like that
then you should rate it low. Like that's
no, but well, I'm dinging it probably a point for that. I mean, there was great writing in this episode.
You dinged it a full point,
dude. If this episode had great writing, Roku was done correctly, the flashbacks were done well, and like the writing, like and the acting and writing was all great, this would be like a 4.3, 4.2, 4.25. I mean, unfortunately, we have to go by 2.5s, but like realistically, this is probably more like a 3.6. It's just I think this is the best episode. I gave another episode 3.5, so I would say 3.75. But like,
wow,
like I mean, think about it, man. If the writing was better if the writing was just good, not great, good in this episode, and the acting was good, I would probably have given it a 4. Like it would have in my mind, because a 5's to me, 5's amazing, 4's good, 3's meh, 2's bad, 1's horrible. Anything under 1 is offensive. So, like, I would say that this was a little worse than good. If the writing was better and the acting was better, it'd probably be good to maybe a little bit better than good. It'd be like a 4, 4.25. I mean, that's just how I look at it. Like I said, there was a 40-minute chunk, not 40. It's probably a 45-minute episode. There was a 22-minute chunk where I genuinely liked what I was watching. I was like, for the first time, probably in this entire series, I was like, this is good. I was like, okay, this is good. And then it ended really well with the Lee stuff. So like, you know, I mean, I can't fault it as much for being like, Ozai wouldn't do that because this is a different Ozai. Mm-hmm. I can't fault it too much for certain things that it did because it's just the characters and things are changing. It's just like there was I would say more than half of this episode was like, for me, was like the best thing we've seen so far in the show and actually good stuff.
I still think episode 3 with Omashu, the first one, was better than this. I
would say this is better. This is me. I mean, again, like,
sure.
I just, and maybe this is actually a bad thing for the show, but a good thing for this episode. That 20-minute chunk didn't have too much acting in it. It was just like action. You know what I mean? Maybe it wasn't 20 minutes, but it was like a, you know, again, from
12,
when Zhao was talking to him until they get away and he gets pinged, you know, probably about 13 minutes. Yeah. So like, you know, and then if you add on to that, everything at the end. So there was like 13 to 14 minutes of this. There was probably about 20 minutes of this 40-minute episode that I genuinely liked. So I'll give it that.
Interesting.
You know? I mean, like I said, it does suck that the acting, because if the acting and the writing was good, I would probably almost bump everything up by 0.5.
I'd bump it up way more than that for me. Like if it was at least tolerable.
Yeah, I can't.
I'd double it. I'd go to 3 point something.
Yeah, and maybe if I watch this, and that's the problem. Like, again, we're different. Maybe if I watch this episode first, it would be a little lower. But I'm so used to the bad acting and the bad dialogue that it's almost like I don't, unless it's cringy, like the Roku thing. Mm-hmm. Like I'm just kind of used to it by now. I'm
that's bad. That's
it is bad. It is bad. And again, maybe that's why. Maybe I'm going too easy on it. I love Avatar, but maybe I'm going too easy on it. You know, but it's one of those things where it's like. As long as the acting isn't so bad, because if that's for me, if that's the case, then why do we even watch the rest of the show? It's all going to be under 3 because the acting.
Because we're still fans of the show, and we have
I'm just saying, like
each episode. And,
I get you, but the way I'm looking at it is, like, that we can't give anything more than a 2.5, which is probably what you're doing because the writing and acting is bad across the board. So it's like, I just personally don't like to do that. I'm looking at it as more of an episode, a plot, what they do with characters, how they may be changing some things around. I'll put a little bit, if it's horrible act, like I don't think any of the acting in this episode or anything they did in this episode besides Zhao's speech and the Roku thing was was horrible. It was all like melatonin.
Not even Aang?
The kid can't act. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the kid can't act. I mean, so it's tough. It's like, man, like, I don't know. Do I give Harry Potter Sorcerer's Stone a 2 because Daniel Radcliffe, when he was 10, couldn't act. He got better. He's actually a really good actor now. But
he was a good actor with Sorcerer's Stone.
Nah, not really.
Yes, he was.
None of them were. I mean, they were all like 8-year-olds that weren't good at acting.
They did it right.
I mean, they weren't great. They were okay. They were meh.
They're not like Daniel Day-Lewis, but like
all I'm saying is, I'm not gonna ding every episode like 2 points because of bad acting.
But it's a combination of acting and dialogue.
And directing, and unfortunately editing, and probably story structure.
All right, Cabbage Crew, please comment below on like if the dialogue and acting are so bad, would an episode still be above a 3? Comment below.
There you go. Yeah. How about this? Also, comment below. With that, comment below. What makes or breaks a good episode for you in any any context? It could be a show remake like this. It could be a show. It could be a movie. I mean, what makes or break a good movie, show, book, anything that you're putting your hands on, that you're getting information when it comes to watching or reading a story. What makes it good or bad to you?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's not acting for me. So.
But please subscribe. Please subscribe, Cabbage Crew. Even though if you're part of the crew, you're already subscribed. But for you
outsiders,
you outsiders, you freedom fighters, please subscribe.
Freedom. Yeah, you freedom fighters, come join the Cabbage Crew.
Come join the Cabbage Crew.
Peace.